Good evening, everyone. We're on a course over 13 weeks studying Thay's vision for mindfulness and public health. And we're doing that by going through Thay's books from the 60s, now we're in the 90s with the book Understanding Our Mind. And I can't understand why I thought I could teach this in one class. Now we're on the second class, and I think we're going to need a third class. Because there's so much in there, and we're only touching a little bit. Okay, so we can come back to our breathing, just be aware of our body, our mind. And know that everything we need to understand our experience of life, the universe, is right here, right now, in our own body and mind. Dear respected Thai, dear friends, it's very important to know that when we talk about Buddhist psychology, the terms are just, they're not too important. We shouldn't stick too much to the terms and see them as separate entities. So when we talk about store consciousness, we're talking about a way our mind functions. It's an aspect of consciousness. It's not like that box, that's store consciousness, and this box is mind consciousness, and this box is manas, right? Words have that tendency for us to make us cut up reality into pieces. And this teaching on store consciousness, on manas, is to help us understand how our mind functions. And Buddhist practice is applied, so it's not for the sake of just describing our mind, but it's for how we actually engage with it, how we experience it. So this is important. Just remember that we shouldn't get too stuck in the terms. It's just a way of describing, helping us to access the functions of our mind so that we can be free. That's the point. Okay. So just to review from last week, we talked about store consciousness. And this is where all the seeds are. So seeds mean latent tendencies. It's a metaphor for the potentialities that are present in our mind. So we know we all have the potential to get angry, for example, or to be sad. But we may not be sad right now. So we say the seed of sadness or anger is in store consciousness, but it's not manifesting in mind consciousness. They said this is like the basement, and mind consciousness is the living room. And we want to invite good friends to hang out with us in our living room of mind consciousness. And when somebody comes and is very rude or makes us feel kind of depressed, well then we learn how to invite them to go back down into store consciousness. Because we know that so long as we continue to allow that sadness or despair to manifest in mind consciousness, then the latent tendency in store becomes stronger. So the seed becomes stronger the more that we continue to manifest that mental formation in our consciousness. So practicing at Deer Park, we bring up joy, we play, we find ways to build trust, gratitude comes up, and we want it to stay for a long time in our mind consciousness. And that way the seed becomes stronger. And in a difficult situation, it doesn't require a lot of effort for that joy or trust to come up in mind consciousness. We can touch it right away. So when we meet someone who has a lot of joy, or we feel a lot of trust in that person, then it means usually that the latent tendency, the seed in their store consciousness has been developed over time. And so that person, in many different circumstances, can bring up that seed of gratitude or trust or joy. And that is what we're here to do. We're here to practice to make the seeds, the potentialities in store consciousness stronger. And again, to call it store consciousness, it's just to describe these latent tendencies or habit energies, like we learned last time, vasana. Which we can say habits, or in Chinese it's tap qi, which means qi is energy, like qigong. So Thich often translated it literally as habit energies. Okay. And there's nothing in store that inherently makes us suffer. But our relationship, for example, the seed of sadness doesn't automatically make us suffer. And so today we're going to look into how does the suffering come about? So I talked a little bit about this layer which manifests at the surface of store. It's a way of thinking about it, we call manas. And manas is just Sanskrit for the mind. But here it describes that aspect of the mind which is always grasping. And it's grasping at an image that it projects onto store of store consciousness itself, or the seeds that are there. So it's not actually accessing the seeds in store consciousness. It's just projecting an image. And it falls in love with that image. And it thinks, this is mine, my precious. And it doesn't want to let go of that image. And even when things as they are contradict the image, we don't want to let go of it. We just want to hold on to our belief, our truth, our image of that person, our loved one, our child. Sometimes moms, they cannot see anything bad about their son or their daughter. They just ignore everything else. And so they have some aspect. They project an image and on store consciousness, and then they can, mothers, fathers, they are blind to the actual operation in the world of their son or daughter. So Thich called Manas the lover. The relationship between manas and the store consciousness is very subtle. Manas arises from store consciousness. So it takes store as its base. And takes a part of store consciousness to be the object of its love, the object of itself, and it holds onto it firmly. It regards this part of store consciousness as a separate entity, a self, and grasps onto it firmly. Manas attaches to the store consciousness just like a small child who clings to her mother's skirt, not allowing her to walk naturally. In the same way, manas hinders the functioning of the store consciousness and gets in the way of transforming the seeds. Just as the moon's gravitational pull on the earth causes the tides, the grip of manas on the store consciousness is the energy that brings about the manifestation of seeds as mental formations in our mind consciousness. So manas, trying to grab onto store consciousness, brings about the manifestation of seeds as mental formations in mind consciousness up here in the living room, or MC for short. The function, our habit, energies, delusions, and craving come together and create a tremendous source of energy that conditions our actions, speech, and thinking. This energy is called manas. The function of manas is grasping. So it is the aspect of our mind which is always grasping onto things. Manas grasps onto the image that it has created and clings to it as its object. That portion of store consciousness that is grasped by manas loses its freedom. Our mind is enslaved when it is picked up and embraced as a self by manas. This is why the Buddha taught about non-self, because he knew that the more that we think, I am this, I am that, I like this, I don't like that, the more we limit our freedom. We become trapped in our own perceptions or the perceptions of others. The perceptions we have about the perceptions of others. We could do a whole course on the perceptions that we have about the perceptions of others, or the perceptions that others have about us. Somehow we spend a lot of time thinking, what does she think about me? What does he think about me? We have perceptions about other people's perceptions. So manas holds on to the object of its attraction very tightly, as if to say, you are mine. You are mine. You have to say it. You are mine. Because it's very strong. I mean, I'm not joking. It's really like, it's always like, yeah, but don't touch that. I can let go. because I live in Deer Park Monastery and I practice mindfulness and I can let go, but not that. It's like, don't touch that. That one I cannot let go of. And the benefit of long practice is that we see those things. It's not the things that are easy to let go of. Like you come to Deer Park and you live very simply and you cannot just eat whatever you want, and there's a schedule and brothers and sisters remind you to go to the schedule. Those things are easy. At home you can do whatever you want. So you've let go of your kind of individuality, your individual preferences. But with long practice, what I've observed is that you get to those things that you really don't want to let go of. The things that are so precious. Many things that you feel distinguish who you are from everyone else. Because you feel, I am alone, and the only thing that can sustain me is my idea of how I'm different from everyone else. Or the same is another suffering. You want to see, I'm just normal. I'm just like everyone else. And neither of those things are true. But we try to hold on to them. When we're afraid, we want to be the same as everyone else. We want to be part of the herd. And then when we feel maybe lonely, or we feel we want to get people's attention, then we say, no, I'm different from everyone else. And so we learn the practice of neither the same nor different. Which is not getting caught in concepts of same and different, one and many. So all those teachings are ways of helping us release our grasping, our attachment to concepts and in our mind. So we stop grasping. In fact, we can't actually hold on to anything. So there's only the grasping. That's the interesting thing. There isn't even a grasper, really, because we just conceive of someone who's the grasper. And we conceive of the object as we're grasping. But actually neither of them have a real substance. So all we're left with is the action of grasping in our mind. And it creates a lot of tension. You just like, you just hold on, and it's just very, it's like your shoulders feel tight, you feel tight in your stomach. You feel it in your body, a kind of rigidity. Manas is the lover, store consciousness is the beloved, my beloved. The nature of their love is attachment, and suffering is the result. So this is why this teaching is so important. So I asked the question for our reflection last week, what perceptions are you married to? There are a lot of beautiful answers on the course forum online. So we have a forum that people are participating in for the course. And if you want to, you can sign up. And I'm sorry, the past 2 weeks, new people signed up, but I didn't have a chance to add them in. But I'll try to do it soon. So lots of people had comments about how they're married to perceptions about especially what is right. Social justice, anti-racism, many, many things. All the views that we take that are good, they are going towards harmony, understanding, peace, resolving conflict in the world. But how do we hold onto, like, I am this person who thinks this, I am this person who has this beautiful, good view. And then when somebody comes along who says something that doesn't agree with our view, we become suddenly very angry, and we scream, or we inside of ourselves we feel, I don't want to associate with that person. We feel disgust. But that person also suffers. That person also is experiencing the world. They may be full of hate, but we also have hate in our store consciousness. They may be full of judgment and discrimination, but if we are honest, we also have judgment and discrimination. So the point of this teaching is to have compassion. Say like, I have all these wrong perceptions, and other people also have wrong perceptions. So what if I can let go of those perceptions and ideas and just embrace this person in the wonder of the present moment as this marvelous ambassador of the cosmos with all their attachments, knowing that I also have attachments. That's where understanding comes in. So the main thing to remember about manas is this action of grasping, which creates tension, trying to stick to an image of how we think the world is or how we think the world should be. And what I found is that the more I let go, the more I actually can, and the more I heal and transform, the more I actually have a direct perception of what's going on in every moment. And then awakened activity becomes so much easier. It's really difficult to help anyone when you're stuck on a view, because the view colors the lenses of your view on the world. It's like when you put on rose-colored glasses. So everything looks pink. But it's not because the world is pink, it's because of the glasses. So when you hold on to a view, and it colors the way you look at the world. And so you miss whole spectrums, whole sections of the color spectrum. So we want to be able to have the clearest view of how things actually are. And then we can actually help. We can help others suffer less. We can help transform a situation of suffering or injustice. But it takes letting go. So it's very interesting. It's counterintuitive. But I've experienced it so many times in my own life, in the Sangha, where if I'm just very present and I'm not caught in a view, then suddenly circumstances present themselves and I can do many things. All the things I dreamed about, as soon as I let go of realizing them, I can suddenly do them with ease, because I have cultivated the capacity to have more direct perceptions, which means non-distorted. So this activity of manas is actually distorting reality, our view of reality. And Thich said it's like manas serves our survival instinct. If while sleeping soundly we hear a sudden noise and wake up, that is the functioning of manas. If someone throws something at us, the reflex of avoiding it comes from manas. It's an instinctual defense mechanism that does not operate on wisdom, but by always trying to defend the self, it can end up destroying the self. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this teaching on realms of perception. Maybe we can listen to a sound of the bell. So in this teaching on manifestation only, we talk about 3 kinds of realms or fields of perception. So there's the realm of things in themselves. So these are things just as they are, without any interference at the level of perception. And for example, when our eye perceives light or a flower, we just see it's like the raw data coming in. Of course, our senses already are distorting them in order to send signals to our brain that this is a purple flower. But even before we perceive or we have some idea of a purple flower, that raw data coming in, that's getting closer to things in themselves. It's very difficult to completely get in touch with things in themselves. But this is the practice of letting go of our views, our notions, our attachment to an image of the world. We, like a scientist, we try to remove our bias as much as possible so that we can see things operating as they are. And the second is the realm of representations or field. Representation, representation. So, bell is a representation, the word bell. And when I look at the bell, there's an image reflected on my retina which stimulates my optic nerve, and there's an image in my brain which is representing the physical location of this bell. So that is already in the realm of representations. So things in themselves, the raw data, is being presented, represented in our mind. And the third is the realm of mere images. So when we sleep, we are in the realm of mere images. The external stimuli is not there, but we are calling up all kinds of situations, images, and they play like a movie through our mind. Poetry makes use of mere images. The words are representations which stimulate images. And one person's experience of that poem cannot ever exactly be the same as someone else's, or a song. So that's operating. There's the raw data of the sound, then there's the representation of the words, but then the images that can be stimulated by the representations, those are coming from our memories, our experiences. And so art and poetry works very much at the level of mere images. So I said the mood, in the realm of things in themselves, the mode of perception is always immediate and direct. So we have these 3 realms, and then three modes of perception. direct. In Sanskrit, it's pratyaksha. Anumana. And then inference. So direct perception is the direct, raw data, without distortion. Inference, the image is, an example is, we see some smoke, but we cannot see the fire. So we infer that there's a fire. And maybe there's a wall, and you see smoke coming up, so you think it's like a signal. We see the sign of smoke, and we infer there's fire. But we cannot directly perceive the fire, so we just infer there's fire. But it could be steam, or something else. It could be some kind of chemical that's being shot out. It looks like smoke. So at the level of inference, which is at the level which we operate very often, especially in our relationships, we infer all kinds of things, which leads to the third mode of perception, which is wrong perception, or abhava, anumana. So we can have wrong perceptions that are from direct perception. So that's a distortion that can happen at the level of our senses. But we can also have wrong perceptions, and very often we have wrong perceptions based on inference. Like, they happen all the time. One brother wasn't at a meeting this morning, and then I thought, I had an inference, a perception that it was because of something that was shared, or I don't know. I started to create stories in my mind, and I found out, no, he was teaching the class for the lay friends. But it's very fast, because I was with another brother, and he says, no, he was teaching the class today. So my mind goes already on a wrong perception. So a lot of what we do in the practice is to just notice our mind's tendency to always jump to conclusions and create wrong perceptions from inference. So the mode of perception is always direct in the realm of things in themselves. There's no reasoning, no calculating, no planning, no judging. With manas, the mode of perception belongs to the realm of representations. So it's in the representations of things in themselves. The object of manas is the realm of representations, and the nature of that world is obscuration. It means things are obscured. You can't really see it. You're looking at shadows of reality. Because manas is obscured, it loves blindly. The object of the love of manas, that manas holds on to tightly, is not the reality of store consciousness, but an image that manas has created. The object of the lover's perception is linked both to the lover, manas, and the thing itself, the store consciousness. So we've learned that consciousness is always consciousness of something. So we cannot talk about consciousness without subject and object. In Buddhist psychology, we talk about 3 aspects of consciousness. So one is just the wholeness, which is the manifestation of awareness. But that always has two parts, which is the perceiver and the perceived, or the subject and the object. So anytime consciousness manifests, it has this split, which is the perceiver, which when manas tries to get at the perceiver of store consciousness, it labels it as a self. This is me, this is mine. And then the object of the perception, which can be the seeds in store consciousness. But in the case of manas, it cannot access it. It's veiled, it's obscured. Instead, it's just accessing a surrogate, which is the representation. So when Thich wrote the poem and said, "The man is not our enemy," this is based on Buddhist psychology. It's not Thich was this incredibly wise person and despised like that. But he trained himself, and the poem is a way of training himself. As he said, in Buddhism, there is no external enemy. There is only ourselves. So when manas is in fear, then the image it projects of its enemy is actually just happening in our mind. Somebody who wants to do us wrong, somebody who hates us, somebody who is manipulating people around us to try to do us harm. It's all happening in our mind. So paranoia is real. It's happening at the level of our mind. And so freedom comes from letting go of that intention to grasp. Even people harm us, but we don't. We can feel pain, but we don't suffer. It doesn't mean that people do not kill, do not commit acts of injustice. But when our mind is clear, we don't create suffering. We know at any moment we can die. So Thich in the poem is a poem to help us not give rise to anger when we die in the act of nonviolence. Remember, brother, man is not our enemy. Your courage intact, your eyes kind. This is the way we cultivate our mind to face the worst enemy, which is actually our mind. The scariest monsters are all in our mind. So learning to smile, sit down and have a tree with the scariest monster in your mind is a practice of meditation, of healing. Just looking at it. When you feel very solid, you feel very stable, you can invite your suffering to come up. And you shine the light of mindfulness on it. That's a way of saying you sit down and you drink tea with your suffering. Say, hello, I know you. You've been tormenting me for years and years. But do I really know you? I want to get to know you. I want to understand you because you're always changing. You're always manifesting in new ways that I don't expect. And I feel like I haven't spent enough time getting to know you. So please sit down, have a cup of tea with me. That is something I practice doing. It's the richest form of practice for me. I love to shine light on my suffering. I don't do it enough. But when I remember to practice, then I don't allow myself to be distracted by things outside, and I shine that light within, so that the tendency to grasping becomes weak, and I can just experience the suffering. How does it feel in my body? What is feeding it? What kind of thoughts, perceptions are feeding it? Because I know that's all the action of this function of consciousness, to survive, to defend itself, protect itself against an existential threat. And then nothing happens. I'm still breathing. I'm still alive. There it is, the scariest monster, sitting right there inside of me. And I'm still breathing. I haven't been, my throat is not cut. I haven't been smashed. This is what Thich is asking us to practice. Seeing no external enemy. In Buddhism, there are no external enemies. There is only ourselves. The object of manas is just a representation, an image in our minds, not something real outside of us. Okay, so this looks difficult, but it's not. Just direct perception is the raw, undistorted, no reasoning, no calculating, the raw data. Inference is when we start to make perceptions about it. It's this, it came from that, it's connected in this way. And if there's any distortion in either of these, and especially it tends to happen here because of associations in our mind, then we end up having wrong perceptions. And so this is why we have so many wrong perceptions. So the practice is to come back to the freshness of the present moment, of what's going on in our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, over and over. Not just once in a while, over and over, because we know our mind is going in this direction. There are direct perceptions, but then quickly we get lost in our memories, our associations with that perception, and then we get off into a kind of swamp of wrong perceptions about the situation. And our perceptions are no longer fresh. They're kind of like stale crackers in the back of your cabinet that have 4 years past the expiration date. That's what it's like when we get down in this. Yeah, you ever take, I think we've all at some point taken one of those crackers out and tried to eat it, and it's all kind of like soft and kind of tasteless, and I don't know what happens. It's almost like a powder that's just kind of, I don't know. It's really, really like stale. But that's what happens over and over when we get out of the mode of direct perception and we go in this direction, out of the realm of things in themselves and down towards here. In the realm of representation. To see how much we go into all of this. So. Okay, so let's really go for it here. So in helping to heal suffering, it's very helpful to know the nature of the causes of suffering. And in the tradition, practitioners look to see what kinds of causes and conditions are there. And we generally speak about 4 kinds of conditions that give rise to an effect. The first is cause as condition. Hetu pratyaya. So this could be like a single grain of wheat giving rise to an entire plant. It's not the only condition, but it's a necessary condition. It is what gives it the result, the plant of wheat, its character, the grain. The second condition is condition for development. And there are conditions that are favorable for development and things that hinder or block development. So, in the case of the wheat, the sunlight could be a condition for development. Water is a condition for development. Lack of water would be a hindrance to development. The timing, the season can be a hindrance or an aid to the development of the wheat. If it rains too much at the wrong time, the plant will not flourish. Not all unfavorable conditions, however, bring about an unwholesome result. Perhaps we are on the brink of making a mistake, but thanks to unfavorable conditions, we avoid doing something destructive. So just because something hinders development doesn't mean it's bad, because we can restrain ourselves from doing something harmful. The third type of condition is object as condition. Alambana pratyaya. So a word or image can be an object as condition. So we're talking about this object aspect of consciousness. So if we hear the word Buddha, maybe we have a feeling of joy. So it gives rise to that feeling of joy. The object as condition is the word Buddha. If we see an image of Thai, for example, on the altar, then that can give rise to all kinds of memories in the realm of images. And these can be joyful images, they can be not joyful. So the perceiver and the perceived. So the presence of an object is necessary for, it's a type of condition for the perceiver to manifest. And the fourth condition is one of immediate continuity. So if we remove, for example, the seed from the soil, then there's no continuity. We've arrested. We've also removed the condition for development, but we also have to keep something in the situation where it is in order to continue to develop. Our experience of consciousness is very flowing, but actually it's just instants of consciousness happening rapid fire. And so it gives the appearance of continuity. So the one who started giving this talk appears to be the same one who's talking now. But we know at a more subtle level that it's not the same one. The changes have already happened. And this is happening very, very fast. He uses the example of somebody who's holding a candle in the dark and they move it around in a circle. And so we perceive a circle. That's thanks to the condition of continuity. So the light is the object as condition, and each instant the candle is only in one place. It's not in all those places, but the perception is of a circle. That's the condition as continuity. And condition for development would be that you don't do it too quickly so that the air extinguishes the flame, or you don't blow it out, or it's like tonight, it's not too windy out. There's enough candle left. These are all conditions for development. And the cause is the presence of the candle. So we can look at any phenomenon and see them in these four ways. And the reason Thich teaches it for Buddhist psychology is to understand manas. So for manas, the cause as condition is the thing in itself aspect of store consciousness. So store as it is, not as it imagines it to be. So it tries to, so if there were no store consciousness, then there's no cause as condition for manas to manifest. Manas is born from a seed of coveting a portion of the store consciousness. The condition for development of manas is the perceiver aspect of store. So store is always receiving. I said store consciousness is like the earth. It's receiving seeds from the plants, from the fruit, and it doesn't grasp at the fruit. It just falls on the earth and then goes into the earth. And but manas is trying to get at the seeds. So it wants to force the situation. It wants to control. But store just allows the natural unfolding to take place. So Thich often trained us. He said a lot of what we do in the monastery is training ourselves to let store consciousness do all the work. It means we get in touch with just nature as it is. It's like you want to go skiing in the summer. So you make machines to make snow. And you pump out water. And so this is what manas tries to do, because he says, I want to go skiing. I'm a skier, but there's no snow. So it makes snow. It tries to put an image on it, whereas the earth is saying, it's the summer. There's no snow. And if If it were winter and it just snowed, like we saw in the San Bernardino Mountains are covered with snow, and you can just, and you're in a hut, you can just step out your door, put on your skis, and there's no problem. So store is things in themselves, takes very little energy. But manas is always using a lot of energy with very little result. So it's like Mick Jagger, I can't get no satisfaction. All the time. It's just trying to force itself into every situation because of its infatuation. Manas is determined to hold on to the perceiver aspect. So it holds on to this perceiver aspect, but actually it's just, as we saw, perceiver, if there's object, it arises spontaneously. But it makes the subject into an object. It tries to fix the subject. That's me, that's mine. Based on this, manas creates an object of its perception. But the perceiver aspect of store consciousness is not a direct object of manas. So it doesn't actually access it, it only projects an image. Instead, manas relies on the perceiver aspect of store consciousness to create its own special object condition, which is the image. The perceiver aspect of the store consciousness is the favorable condition for development of the wrong perception of manas. So if store consciousness does perceive, just like every form of consciousness has perceiver and perceived. So if it were not there, there would not be the condition for development of manas. But manas actually can't get at it. It's always just becoming infatuated with its own creation. The false perception of reality that it calls its beloved. Like encountering someone in a dream and believing that person to be real. During the night, Thich says, our mind is subjected to the will of manas. In sleep, we live not in the realm of representation, but in the realm of mere images. While we are sleeping, manas urges our mind consciousness to make use of the seeds in store consciousness, to create an environment that satisfies the desires of manas. So it's all created in our mind. Our mind consciousness produces dreams that are made up of images from seeds. So the representations, now they've separated from things in themselves and they've become mere images. In the same way, the object of manas is not the real perceiver aspect of our store consciousness. The real perceiver aspect of store plays the role of the condition for development on which manas is based in order to develop an object condition, which is the wrong perception. So that image it projects. So that's what we call ignorance. I find this very helpful. I don't know if it's not for everyone, but some of us, we have this mind that needs to know, like, how does this all work? I used to be the kid who takes apart the stereo to figure out how it works, and then I wouldn't know how to put it back together. Actually, my mom is here, so she knows about that. Anyway, so somehow I want to get in there and know, how does it do this? So I find this very helpful because we can say, okay, come back to my breathing, enjoy walking, but yet we're pummeled by images every moment, over and over and over again. What is this factory generating all these images and perception in every moment of our life based on our emotions that we've had and situations and experiences. And this is very helpful. This helps me to see, why do I need to come back and renew my perception, refresh it with direct perception of the present moment, and not get lost in the mire of these images that Manas is projecting. Okay, so Thai reminds us that these so we often see lists of mind, consciousness, manas, and store. We have the sense consciousnesses, the 8, or the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, touch. And those interact with mind consciousness, but mind consciousness can also go off on its own and operate like it does when we're in a dream. And so we often say, okay, these are 5 sense consciousnesses, and this is the mind consciousness, the 6th, and manas is the 7th, and store is the 8th. And Thai, just like I shared in the beginning, he always reminds us, it's not that these are separate things. They are just the way consciousness operates. So they're different aspects of the same reality. If we try to divide consciousness into 8 independent entities, we are going against the spirit of Buddhist teachings, in which everything is intimately linked with everything else. Each of us has many facets, but these facets are merely different aspects of a whole, and consciousness is the same. Different functions of consciousness are given different names, but those functions are closely linked with each other. Although they are 8, they are also one. So when we talk about consciousness storing latent tendencies, we say, that's store consciousness. But we're talking about a function. When we're talking about our nature of thinking and calculating and discriminating, that's manas. So it's a name to describe a function. Just like you use an axe to cut wood. It's a function. The function of thinking, calculating, and reasoning of our mind, of our consciousness, is manas. And and mind consciousness is what perceives. And so manas can be transformed, fortunately. And that is the source of happiness. It means we can stop grasping, stop to discriminate between self and non-self, mine and not mine. So when the seeds from which manas are evolved are transformed, manas will be transformed. And that's the transformation at the base. The original title of the book, Understanding Our Mind, was Transformation at the Base. So store is the base of manas. So if we learn to transform the seeds that give rise to manas, because it manifests with store as condition, as we just learned, then that transforms manas. And it starts to release its grip on store consciousness. It's kind of stranglehold. I like to imagine like vines covering something. You ever see a plant that just like kind of grows over? Or the image for me here at Deer Park is the pipes, the septic pipe outside the dining hall. You know, when you walk into our dining hall, under the sidewalk, there's the pipe that brings all the poop and urine and everything out of the 2 bathrooms there. And the pine tree has roots that go to that pipe. And when I was a young bhikshu, I was the work coordinator here. And I remember having, it was getting backed up. And those bathrooms are always getting backed up. And it's because the roots are strangling the pipe, and they actually split the pipe and go inside to try to get the water. So desperately want water. And so we always have to get plumbers or get the snake and put it down there, and then you can actually, now they have ones with the video, you can actually see this kind of stranglehold of roots. So Manas is also of an organic nature. It's like that. It's like the roots of the tree trying to get at water. It just strangles. And so then store consciousness cannot function normally. And Manas is working day and night, just like store. So even while we sleep, in fact, when we're relaxed, we actually get some idea of how Manas is functioning by the way we dream. And mind consciousness in this metaphor, so store like the earth, Manas, trying to grasp store as its own. Mind consciousness plays the role of a gardener. So it's the one that can tend the earth skillfully and help good seeds like joy and compassion come up in mind consciousness. Our mind consciousness does not have to work directly with manas. It can work with the seeds in store consciousness. Store consciousness is like a garden, a plot of earth that contains all the seeds. A garden cannot cultivate itself. A gardener is needed. When the gardener has plowed, hoed, tilled, sown the seeds, and watered the earth offers flowers and fruits to support the life of the gardener. The gardener knows that it is not he that brings forth the fruits, but the earth itself. So the conditions are all there. Mind consciousness just plays the role of steward, like a good steward taking care of the garden. In this way, mind consciousness helps the store consciousness bring forth the fruit of the practice, joy, peace, and transformation. And we learn to trust store consciousness. So we know that the seeds will just grow by themselves. Like I have a little tomato garden. And I just got a tomato today. And I know that I can help to water the plants and make sure that they have good compost in the soil. But there's so much of it that I just trust to the earth, to the nutrients, to the air. Or when it rains the other day, then suddenly it's all this growth. And I don't know if you ever noticed, but I find it's not quite the same when you use water from the hose as when the rain comes. And then the plants just, it's like they sense on many levels. It's not just water in the ground, but it's like all around the whole thing. It's like, now is the time to grow. And there's, hundreds of millions of years of evolution there. So we trust store consciousness, we trust the conditions. Thich often said, the ancestral teachers have already arranged everything. Thich just has to play the role. And that's helped me so many times in my life as a monk when I really wanted something to happen. It's kind of funny, if you stick around long enough in the Sangha, you see people come in and they have a lot of ideas. They want to change the Sangha. They see, it's a little bit like manas. It's like, they love the Sangha so much, so they project onto the Sangha an image of the Sangha. And it's the image they want to see of the Sangha, or Deer Park, or whatever. And then they start to stranglehold Deer Park. Like, my precious. And then But luckily, we have brothers and sisters who are long time in the practice, so they know how to kind of step out of that stranglehold, not get caught in other people's infatuation towards the Sangha. And eventually, with time, we know that that grip will start to loosen, and we start to perceive things in themselves with direct perception. This is Sangha. It's beautiful, it's ugly. It's neither beautiful nor ugly. And by perceiving the Sangha like that, then we start to see the world like that, and we see that, wow, the world is not good nor bad. It's just at the level of my perception that creates good and bad. And then we can act skillfully in the world to reduce suffering. But if we continue to live in a world of black and white, good and bad, it's almost impossible to help. We try to help, but we create more damage because we don't understand the nature of things as they are. So mind consciousness can cultivate, and particularly can cultivate seeds like mindfulness. So all of you are here at Deer Park because you want to cultivate the seed of mindfulness, and you want to go into a good environment to strengthen the seed of mindfulness. So your mind consciousness has signed you up for a retreat, and you got in a bus or a car or a plane, or maybe all three of those, and you found your way here. And so you put yourself in that environment in order to strengthen the seed of mindfulness. So that's the action of mind consciousness as a gardener, going into good conditions, and so that seed can grow stronger. And that helps to transform the delusion of manas. Okay. Well, we covered quite a lot today. I think most of what I wanted to cover, but I think we'll need one more class next week before Thanksgiving. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. One announcement. So we started a series of dialogues with public health scientists, and this Sunday at 4:00 is the next one. So it will be on Zoom. So for those of us here in the monastery, I think in somebody's room they had a party and watched it last time. It was Nicole's mom, who's a public health professor at Berkeley. So we're very honored this week. Dr. Walter Willett, who is a very renowned nutrition scientist and medical doctor at the Harvard School of Public Health, will. So I'll have a dialogue with him on Zoom for about 45 minutes or an hour at 4:00. So those of us watching online, you just I will post the link on Zoom on the forum. And we'll record it as well, and hopefully in the next weeks or so we'll probably post it online. And I know a number of people wrote in questions. So on the forum there was a place so you could put questions, but I might not be able to get to all the questions. And some of the questions are not really his area of expertise. So I'm going to go through it but use those questions as prompts in the dialogue. He's a wonderful person. So he actually invited Thich to his graduate school when he was a medical student in 1968, University of Michigan Medical School. And so Thich came and spoke about the war in Vietnam. And because of that speech, then all of the graduate students at the commemoration ceremony, I guess, or graduation ceremony, they wore a black band in protest of the Vietnam War because of Thai's speech. And he had a chance to meet Thai again when at a psychotherapy conference that Thai gave on Thai's last US tour in 2013 that was hosted by Harvard Medical School. And Thai encouraged him to bring mindfulness into public health. So that's kind of the coming together of many different strands. So I think it would be very interesting. He studies epidemiology, specifically the epidemiology of nutrition, so like obesity and many kinds of diseases that come about because of our eating habits. And I met him in August when we were in Boston, and he's very, very lovely person. So I encourage everyone to join. And we will continue next week with understanding our mind. So some of the classes, some of the books I wanted to go into, we won't have a chance to. But I think it's okay because it's all the same teaching. Okay. I'm finished with 3 sounds of the bell.